Salachi Otaka msi anabata unu kpọmkwem n'ihu mmanyị n'oge ndị Igbo na Darling 107.3 Owerri. Onye na-anụ olu ya na nke ụtụtụ aka bụkwa m Ozi Bekee nwanyị ọnụ ogene mana nke taa anyị nwere ndị ọbịa pụrụ iche anyị na ha ga-anọrị malite ugbu a ruo mgbe oge ji ọkara gata elekere 9 anyị ga-egbapụ ya ọsọ na ịnabata ha anyị na ha nọrịcha anyị ga-agazi n'ihu iwetara gị ihe omume anyị ndị ọzọ na nke ụtụtụ a anyị nwere ọkpọka mmadụ abụọ anyị na ha ga-anọrị ndị na-ahụ gbasara ahụike Pharmacist Karachi Chikwe nakwa Dọkịnta Stanley Emegwara ka anyị nabatazie ha ma ya wutila gị na ọ bụ n'asụsụ Bekee ka anyị na ha ga-eji nọrịa na nke ụtụtụ a. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, we want to just let the people know, listeners know what actually you want to discuss this morning. I am aware that the topic is reducing the burden of hepatitis, the role of the pharmacist.
Thank you very much, my sister Alzoma. First of all, by way of introduction, my name is Dr. Stanley Emegwara, a pharmacist, a fellow of the West African Postgraduate College of Pharmacists, and the chairman, Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria Imo State Chapter. I and my colleague were here this morning to talk about hepatitis. Still in the spirit of the World Hepatitis Day, which was celebrated just Tuesday this week on the 28th of July, we've chosen that topic. But before I go on, Ibondiomu na muchileu au kwa mwafunu. Una muchile de ihe mere ndị wụ na ọtụtụ ndị na-ana n'Igbo na-ege mmemme a ọ ya mere anyị ga-aji sụọ okwu Bekee nwee ike anyị na ha enwekwa ike ịkparịta. So my colleague Karachi, introduce yourself.
Okay, good morning all. Thank you for being here this morning. My name is Pharmacist Karachi Chikwe. I'm the managing pharmacist of Medicine Sport Pharmacy Owerri. We have come again today to talk about hepatitis. You know, the last time we were here on the 28th, we spoke to you about the definition of what hepatitis means. We told you about the causes. We told you the different types of hepatitis. We also told you the preventive measures. And also, we talked about a little about the therapy. So today we are continuing the talk on hepatitis. But mainly today we're going to discuss about the role of pharmacists, how pharmacists can help you in the world, in hepatitis really, whether is you don't have it or you have it, whichever way. That's what we're going to discuss today, so that anytime you can walk into your nearest pharmacy, anyone close to you, ask for the pharmacist, and the pharmacist can tell you anything you want to know about hepatitis.
Odimma tupu anyị aga n'ihu anyị ga-anara ozi sitere n'aka ndị nkwado ihe omume a ọ bụrụ na nke ahụ gacha anyị ga-aga Dọkịnta Emegwara o nwere ihe ị chọrọ ikwu.
Yes, first of English. So,
Odimma, we want to hear from Dr. Stanley Emegwara. He has something to say about this program.
Thank you very much, listeners. Like I said earlier, I said it in Igbo, even though that this is an Igbo shift. I'm an Igbo man and really would have wished to operate, but because we have listeners that do not hear Igbo all over the country, some of our listeners are also listening to us via the Facebook. We need to carry them along. As a matter of fact, we've done the introduction, and then it will be necessary to introduce what the program is all about. We are executive of the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria Imo State Chapter, and when we came on board, we felt based on what we saw, objectively speaking now, that there was need for us to fill in some gap that existed within the public sphere. This gap we saw had to do with drugs, and being experts on drugs, we felt it was necessary to see what we can do about it. A lot of people do a lot of things out of ignorance, and that was why when we came on board, we felt it was necessary, and because we considered it to be necessary, we took it upon ourselves to see how we can do it. It cost a lot to be on air such as this, and on that basis, we decided to approach some pharmaceutical companies, that's our partners, and graciously, one of them, Emzor Pharmaceutical Industries Limited, decided and agreed to collaborate with us in this enlightenment program. As a matter of fact, this is a public enlightenment program from the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria Imo State Chapter in partnership with Emzor Pharmaceutical Industries Limited. They are actually the sponsors of this program, and I want to use this opportunity to express our sincere gratitude to them. And then, like I said, basically, it's going to be an enlightenment program. It will run for some time. I'm sure Zioma will be participating or will be interacting with you and the people in the weeks or in the months to come. And the whole essence of this, like I said, we want to enlighten the public. There's a whole lot of gap when it comes to matters of drug. That's why you see people engaging in drug addiction, drug abuse, and they end up badly. I'm sure if they were well informed about some of the dangers associated with the use of drugs, some may not have ended up like that. So it was on that basis that we felt it's necessary, as a responsible association, the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria, in partnership with Emzor Pharmaceutical Industries Limited, we engage in this. The whole essence is to enlighten and educate the public. Like the NCDC has been saying, let them take responsibility. Like I said on Tuesday when we were here, this is not an alternative to the services we render as healthcare professionals. We just felt like we are talking about hepatitis. When the people are informed about the possible symptoms they are supposed to see, they will be better informed. And if they are better informed, they can prevent getting hepatitis. And those who already are infected with hepatitis, based on the knowledge of the symptom that they have now, they can seek medical attention. That's basically what the program is all about. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Stanley Emegwara. We are still on the show with Dr. Stanley Emegwara and pharmacist Karachi Chikwe. They are discussing this morning reducing the risk of hepatitis, the role of the pharmacist. I think now is the time for us to take a message from the sponsors of the show, Emzor Company Limited.
Since morning, my head the hammer, my back the pain. I reach the house and I get a stone. Pray some Jesus and me free. Emzor paracetamol. My head is clear, my body stronger. Oh yeah, my song today, not today. Emzor paracetamol, now the Obonge paracetamol when they give red card to headache, pain and fever.
If body not tranga after 3 days, go see a doctor. Emzor paracetamol, now the official paracetamol for the Super Eagles.
Mastercraft on the beat.
We are still having on the show pharmacist Karachi Chikwe and Dr. Stanley Emegwara discussing the reduction of the burden of hepatitis, the role of the pharmacist. Okay, pharmacist Karachi Chikwe, I want to have you say some of the things you want to about this topic, reducing the burden of hepatitis.
Okay, thank you, Ozioma. Remember the last time we talked about hepatitis, we had talked about the definition, hepatitis, inflammation of the liver. So many things can cause inflammation of the liver. Of course, we talked about the causes like the viruses from hepatitis A, B, C, D, E, and G. But the most prevalent ones are the A, B, and C, mainly hepatitis B in Nigeria. We talked about also some of the symptoms if you get hepatitis, some of the symptoms like the low-grade temperature, that is, you have a fever. You can also have nausea and vomiting. Then as it progresses, your eyes can get yellowish, your skin can also change color. These are some of the symptoms of hepatitis. The last time too we talked about preventive measures, the most important being vaccination. We talked about some of the vaccines, especially for hepatitis B, which we have for children and we also have for adults. We also talked about hygiene. We talked about several things really the last time we were here. So today we'll move over mainly to the role of pharmacists in the management of hepatitis.
Okay, by way of addition, I remember on Tuesday when we were talking with the host then, there was actually need for us to point out basic features. Because when we were asked about the preventive measures, we felt it was necessary for them to know the types and how they are transmitted, their mode of transmission. Okay. It's basically that once you know the mode of transmission, the tendency is high that you will now make effort to prevent it. Since this is an enlightenment program aimed at educating the public for them to be better informed and then take precautionary measures, it will also be necessary we'll talk about that. Like my colleague here has already said, various organisms are involved. There are various types. She's talked about viral hepatitis. She's talked about other types, including drug-induced. There are toxins-induced. There is the one they call autoimmune hepatitis, where the body now sees a component of itself as a stranger and then attacks it via production of antibodies. Again, like my colleague has already rightly stated also, it's also necessary, if talking about viral hepatitis, for instance, let's use that as a case study, you will find out that we have A, B, C, D, E, and recently scientists have identified another one, G, though not so much is known about it. And the basic mode of transmission for A in particular is through contaminated water and food. So also E. So when people know that through contaminated water and food by infected people, you now know the importance of the preventive step. When we talk about you must make sure that you take clean water, you will understand why we are saying you must take care of clean water. Then for B, you talk about blood transfusion, you talk about vertical transmission from mother to child. And then for C, you also talk about similar modes of transmission, including use of sharp objects, including reckless sexual behavior. So these modes of transmission for hepatitis, since our interest, like I said, is that the public should be better informed, is necessary so that they will now know. When we talk about don't engage in use of sharp objects that are not sterilized, even if it's your fingernail that you want to cut, for instance. If you must use razor, go and buy the new one, which supposedly is sterile. Okay, if you must use any sharp object, let it be personal to you. When we talk about that now, you see the reason for that, because we are already looking at, if you use the one that is not sterile, it could be infected with hepatitis. And if that happens, you've gotten yourself infected. When we also say have a good source of clean water, we all know how the situation of the country is now. The majority of the people have to depend on borehole. And there's no big deal in you boiling the water you're going to drink. At least to reduce, if not eradicate the pathogens there, you can reduce it to the barest minimum. And in such a situation, you are taking a preemptive step, rather proactive step, to ensure that you prevent hepatitis. So you also talk about indisciplined sexual disposition, where people, since hepatitis could be transmitted via sexual means, you also have to be proactive and ensure that you don't engage in indiscriminate sexual misbehavior. So by the time you take all these steps, you would have assisted yourself to a very reasonable extent in making sure that you prevent hepatitis. So this information, particularly as it has to do with the preventive step, is very necessary for the populace. Since we are talking about reducing the burden of hepatitis, how do we reduce it? We reduce it first by preventing. And where people, after sincere effort, can they still contract the virus or the bacteria that causes the thing, then you will have to go for treatment. So that is why one of the means of reducing the burden. Also, like this year's topic, it says finding the missing millions. In fact, we actually made a joke out of it on Tuesday when we were here. I was innocently looking at the millions to be the people, while some of us were looking at
the money.
Nigeria is not a million.
Million is always connected with money.
So that's the thing, finding the missing millions. You can't find the missing millions without informing them. So that is the primary purpose of this program. Inform them about the preventive measures. And then from what my colleague has said also, the symptoms such as fatigue, malaise, dark stool, yellowing of the eye, and so on and so forth. Like I said that day, which I think said also today, this is not an alternative to the services we render as healthcare professionals. But basically, we think it's necessary to inform them. We've talked about preventive measures. It will help them protect themselves from getting infected. Exactly. And then the symptoms we've presented to them is to enable them. If you are somewhere and you are hearing these symptoms and you have them, for instance, you can say, okay, is it what these people are saying? Now let me go to hospital and seek medical attention and see what is really wrong with me. From there, we'll be getting the missing millions. And I'm sure by the time we see they get the missing millions and move them out of the system, we'll see that we'll have a healthier and wealthier society. In addition to this, I think it's also necessary to talk about the justification for this. Justification in the sense that we have data both from WHO, that's World Health Organization, and even from the Federal Ministry of Health down here in Nigeria. It is estimated from the data released by Federal Ministry of Health that over 22 million Nigerians are infected with hepatitis B alone. We are not talking about those with C, we are not talking about those with D, we are not talking about those with A and E. This is only for the viral hepatitis. There could also be bacterial. We are not talking about those infected with that. We are not talking about those having hepatitis as a result of drug or toxin induced. Talk of autoimmune induced hepatitis. So if 22 million Nigerians are living with hepatitis, it's really a problem for us, and we have to find a way of reducing this burden. How do we reduce this burden? Education, enlightenment, so that the people will be informed and take informed decision. That's part of the reason, or that's the major reason for this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Pharmacist Dr. Stanley Emegwara. He's the chairman, Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria, Imo State Chapter. And we still have on the show Pharmacist Karachi Chikwe. This show is in partnership with Emzor Pharmaceutical Company. We'll be taking calls from you listeners anytime from now. You can ask your questions. We have the doctor on the show to give answers to your questions.
Okay, my dear. Yes, before we engage in the course, which will be necessary and which is also a vital component of what we are doing, my colleague talked about possible role of the pharmacist. As pharmacist, of course, this is our area. It is necessary also we'll talk about our roles, and that will help us see what we can do. So I'm sure you're already giving me a signal that you are the time for advert. Maybe after that I will talk about the role of the pharmacist.
Exactly. Let's take that from Emzor Pharmaceutical Company.
I don't know since morning, my head the hammer, my back the pain. I reach the house and I get rest of my son Junior say me quickly. Emzor paracetamol, my head is my body tranga. Oh yeah, my son today not today. Emzor paracetamol na the ogbonge paracetamol wey dey give red card to headache, pain and fever.
If body not tranga after 3 days, go see your doctor. Emzor paracetamol na the official paracetamol for the Super Eagles.
Masterclass on the beat.
Thank you very much, and listeners, welcome back after that short break to advertise our sponsors. Before we went on that break, we talked about possible role of the pharmacist in reducing the burden of hepatitis. This is in the spirit of World Hepatitis Day, which was celebrated last Tuesday, the 28th of July. The role of the pharmacist is broad and then involves a whole lot of activities. One is such activities include the one we are doing now. That's education and enlightenment, trying to inform the public of what they need to know so as to be better informed and take better informed decisions also. So one role of the pharmacist is educating the public, and we're already doing that. I'm sure that speaks for itself. Another important role, like we said, which is a major preventive measure in the prevention of hepatitis, is vaccination. Vaccination is the process of conferring immunity, or rather, some people will prefer to use immunization as a process of conferring immunity on individuals. This process of conferring immunity is a step usually taken for some disease conditions. It is aimed at, once the immunity is conferred to them, you now find out that they are protected from that particular disease. The process, which the molecular level involves, maybe you bring a particular organism, let's say a particular type of virus, you reduce its capacity to cause disease condition, what we call attenuation. Once you now put it inside the body sees it as a stranger. The body still identifies it as that particular organism, and then provokes the immune system to produce what we call antibody. That antibody now confers immunity. So as pharmacists, our primary responsibility here is the production of the vaccine. We produce the vaccine. Incidentally, our partners, they have a vaccine section, Emzor Pharmaceutical Industries Limited. They have Emzor vaccines. They are much into that. And when we talk about vaccination, outside that statutory role of production of the vaccine, we also, by virtue of our education and knowledge, we are in a better position even to talk about the storage. Because one important thing about vaccine is that if not properly stored, you may not get the desired result from it. You could see situations where you'll be giving people vaccine and you don't know that what you're giving is just nothing but what we call a denatured product. Once a product is denatured, the possibility is that it wouldn't give you a result. Outside this production of the vaccine and possible storage, we are also in a better position to advise patients when it comes to adjustment of dosage of drugs in hepatitis patients. Usually one major attribute of hepatitis is that it influences the functioning of the liver. We all know from elementary biology that one major function of the liver is metabolism. Metabolism is simply the process by which external things brought into the body are removed, and the liver performs this major function. Once the liver is inflamed in a case of hepatitis, you find out that that function may be impaired. A drug as ordinary as paracetamol could lead to death if not properly adjusted in a case of chronic hepatitis. I'm sure when next we'll talk about dosage adjustment in disease conditions, that's going to be one of our topics along the line. I will dwell so much into this. Let me allow my colleague to talk a little on this.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. Like a follow-up to what he has been saying, the vaccination is very important for prevention. Please, some people may think that the vaccines are not available. Please, they are very available. In the hospitals, when your child is born, they start the hepatitis B vaccination immediately and then continue it as the months go by for the children. For adults, please, the vaccines are very available. You can walk into any pharmacy, ask the pharmacist how you can get the vaccines, and they are very available. Also continue what he was talking about for infected persons. The pharmacist comes in here in the sense that for infected persons, your liver is already compromised, is already inflamed, so it's not going to work fully like a normal liver. So any prescriptions you are giving, always good to enter the pharmacy, ask for the pharmacist because of effects of, because if your prescriber has given you antivirals for your hepatitis, those drugs you're taking for hepatitis can also have reaction with other drugs. We can talk about drug-drug interaction. Some of them can react with normal drugs like antacids. You know, the normal antacids we take every day. They can react with them. Others, like it can worsen your hepatitis, like he said, paracetamol. So the best thing is always, when you're given a prescription from your prescriber, take this prescription to the pharmacy, ask for the pharmacist, so that he will look at it and make some changes. Whether he's going to talk with your prescriber and say, please remove this drug, is going to react with the one for the hepatitis, or let us reduce the quantity of the drug, the dosage of the drug the patient is also taking. These are very, very important. So please, always go to the pharmacist to correct some of these things. Like he keeps talking about paracetamol. If you have hepatitis and you're already taking the antiviral drugs, you cannot take paracetamol or even some of the cholesterol drugs too. So it's very important you go and see your pharmacist. Very, very important. If there's a change, the pharmacist will always converse with your prescriber and be able to change some of those things.
Thank you, Pharmacist Karachi Chikwe. You're on the show this morning on this Health Enlightenment program sponsored by Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria, Imo State Chapter. We have Pharmacist Karachi Chikwe and Dr. Stanley Emzor, the Chairman of Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria, Imo State Chapter. Now, you can be part of the show by reaching us on our studio lines, 081 50501073 08150501073. You can ask questions about the this problem we are discussing, this health issue, hepatitis, and then the doctor on the line on the studio can answer your question. Let's take this first call. Good morning.
Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning. Your name and where you're calling from? Are you there? Hello?
I'm here. Good morning.
Good morning. Go ahead with your question. Welcome.
Yeah. My question is, what is the duration of the vaccine? This hepatitis vaccine? Is it for a lifetime for adults or does it expire? I want to know.
Thank you.
Okay, in answer to your question, let's look at, I don't know which hepatitis you're talking about, but I'll just talk about a little about hepatitis A vaccine. You know, usually take it 2 doses. You take a start today, and then you take the next one within 6 to 12 months. That gives you an immunity for the child 20 years, then for the adult 25 years. So when after some time you have like 25 years is running, you can take a test and know whether the vaccine has reduced in your blood, and you can now go for a booster vaccine, a booster dose. For hepatitis B, for the children who take it within 24 hours they have been born, it gives them a lifetime immunity. Remember that in the child, after that first birth dose, they still take 3 more doses to give them complete immunity. So remember, in every vaccination you want to take, you must complete the doses. It's not just to take one and say, oh, I've taken hepatitis vaccine, and then you don't complete the second and the third ones. Okay. You understand?
I hope you've gotten the answer to your question. Now we are about to conclude. We just have to take this message for the last time, and then we say goodbye in this show this morning.
Emzor paracetamol na the ogbonge paracetamol wey dey give red card to headache, pain and fever.
If body not tranga after 3 days, go see your doctor. Emzor paracetamol na the official paracetamol for the Super Eagles.
We are back on the show on an Health Enlightenment program that is sponsored by Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria. We are wrapping it up here. We had on the show Pharmacist Karachi Chikwe and Dr. Stanley Emzor, the Chairman of Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria, Imo State. That's where we come to the end of this show.
Okay, Ozioma, we really thank you. And then, Nigeria, we'll be here again by God's grace next week to continue with the show. And we're also grateful to our sponsors, Emzor Pharmaceutical Industries Limited. We are really grateful to them, and then we promise the public that we're going to, as much as possible, enlighten them on matters of drugs. Thank you.
Okay, Pharmacist Karachi, your last shot.
Thank you very much for listening to us. See you again next week.
Thank you so much for coming around on the show.
My love will still remain for the boundless pleasure.
Ihe dị mma n'anya gbara ndụ. Onye ihe ọma na-adị mma bịa nara anyị aka. Darling FM 107.3 Owerri bụ ebe anọ. Hapụ redio gị ebe ahụ.
Ọ dị mma, ọka bụkwa n'oge ndị Igbo na Darling 107.3 Owerri ka ị na-ege ntị. Ka anyị wetaziere gị ihe omume otu ka Lifeline